All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Corner at Choose Adventure Media. My name is Zach, and in tonight's live stream, we're going to be recapping the Oregon Ducks 21-7 win over the Wisconsin Badgers here in Week 9 of the college football season. We'll also be talking about games across the country that happened today. So feel free, as always, please let me know in the chat what were you most impressed with today, what maybe disappointed you a little bit about the Ducks. Obviously, there's a lot that was a little disappointing today, as from an Oregon Ducks fan perspective. And let me know what were your thoughts about what happened across the country. It was a relatively tamer weekend in college football, but we have a lot more data now moving forward of what some possible playoff races look like, what some conference championship races look like. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with the Oregon Ducks game. Obviously, that was an extremely disappointing game, right? Like, and the thing that was most disappointing to me is that it's the same issues that we've kind of seen the last few weeks. And I don't feel like Wisconsin played well. However, I think that game was only as close as it was because the Oregon Ducks weren't playing to their full potential. We saw it. I saw it even before the game started in Dante's warm-ups on the broadcast. He just did not seem comfortable. It's the same facial expression he had when he came out against Indiana, and he didn't play well against Indiana. He didn't have that dog. He looks like he has that dog mentality, you know what I mean? Like that, I'm the best guy on the field. No one can stop me. I can fit the ball into tight windows, and no one can stop me. That's how he looked against Penn State. That's how he looked against Rutgers. That's how he looked in, honestly, every game except for tonight in the Indiana game. Obviously, Wisconsin doesn't have the same level of talent that Indiana has, so as a result, the Ducks were able to get away with it. I get it. The weather was rough. I get it. The refs were truly horrible in both directions. At least, at least I always say I want the refs to be consistent, and they were just consistently bad all night. With all those poor spots that they gave to the Badgers, it was just awful. I mean, I liked the start of the game with the onside kick. Obviously, I liked it and how aggressive it was, and I thought, okay, the Ducks of the last few weeks have made the mistake of playing too conservative. I've been saying that, particularly on offense and a little bit on defense, they've been playing not to lose instead of playing the game to win. And I feel like against lesser opponents, they get more conservative, and that's like driving a Ferrari in second gear. Like it's not going to work well. Like you need to let this offense roar. And again, I get it. It's raining. However, whenever they did throw the ball downfield in the pouring rain, they did just fine. On a corner route to Jeremiah McClellan, Brock Thomas was 4 for 4 for 46 yards. So it was extremely frustrating to see Will Stein again being too conservative. Like I get, we need to establish the run. And the thing is, I also feel like Will Stein doesn't have a solidified game plan. Like the last few weeks, I don't know what his game plan was. Like if you're going to establish the run to set up play action, make that clear, right? Like don't, or if it's going to be aggressive, then be aggressive from the jump. I think he very subtly, the only game plan that I see is not using De'Aaron Hill, one of the most explosive players on the entire Ducks team, until the third quarter. That's extremely frustrating from a Ducks fan perspective. Will Stein is definitely in some hot water with the Oregon Ducks fans. And as always, the defense bails out the Oregon Ducks. I think the defense played extremely well. Obviously, they had a little trouble stopping the run. But, I mean, Wisconsin's a great running team, and just with the amount that they were running the ball, it's expected to give up yards here and there. I'm going to pull up the exact box score. As always, please let me know in the chat, what did you guys think about the game? Obviously there was a lot to be disappointed in, but what were some positives? I think Jordan Davison played extremely well, and I think he maybe deserves a lot more credit on the national stage for how well he's playing. A lot of people want to talk about true freshmen in other parts of the country, but I think Jordan Davison is an extremely underrated freshman. People like to put him in a box of just a Thunder running back, meaning he's just more power. But he has it all. He has elusiveness. He's a great one-cut back. He can make guys miss. He can, turn on the burners on a long run. Jordan Davison is extremely versatile, and DR Hill as well. But I think Jordan Davison, because he has a little bit more of a power element, I think that's something that the team doesn't have, and I think that's why he's maybe getting more touches. All right, let's look at the team stats. So Oregon, they gave up only 108 rushing yards and 86 passing yards, and most of those were coming on that, ridiculous deep pass by the Badgers late in the game. What were the Badgers? They were 7 of 21, so a 33% completion percentage. The Ducks ran the ball for 200 yards, 132 yards passing. So the statistics are definitely lying here. Those numbers don't look bad with how bad the Oregon offense looked, particularly in the first half. And I'm going to defend my point some more that the Oregon Ducks need to play more aggressively, because you saw as the Ducks scored more points, the defense played more freely. Like, they were flowing to the ball more. They were playing better as a result of the offense putting up points and just knowing that the game plan is opened up. I'm pulling up the first half stats that I screenshotted. So in the first half, Oregon only had 39 yards rushing, and they ended up with 203. Wisconsin, they had 90 yards in the first half, and they ended up with 108. So they only had 18 rushing yards in the second half. So again, I think you just saw the players react, and the players very clearly came out flat-footed in the first half. That was very disappointing, obviously, because I've said this whole year that I think Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches at mentally preparing his team and mentally getting his players ready to play. And I just didn't see that today. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's the opponent. I don't know if it's just... I honestly don't know what it was. I was a little disappointed. Dan Lanning wasn't getting on the players, for stuff like personal fouls, lining up in the neutral zone. Like, there were a lot of just miscues, and it looked like nobody really cared, which is a little disappointing. Obviously it didn't come back to hurt them, and I don't know these players personally, so I don't know how to best get the best out of them, and I trust Dan Lanning does. But I am concerned that they came out flat-footed against Indiana. They came out flat-footed against Wisconsin. I don't know what it is. So I started this stream by saying it was most disappointing because it's the same problems that we've seen over and over and over again. And that's exactly what it was. It's Will Stein being way too conservative, not taking advantage of the weapons that he has. Did Kenyon Sadiq even have a reception? I know he got a rush, right? Or what was his? Yeah, Kenyon Sadiq got one reception for 6 yards. Kenyon Sadiq had one reception for 6 yards. That's unacceptable. Like, Will Stein for weeks has been saying, oh yeah, I want to get Kenyon Sadiq the ball more. I want to get Kenyon Sadiq the ball more. Then do it. Like, manufacture touches however you have to. It's like I think there was a tight end screen that may have been set up to Sadiq, and it got deflected at the line of scrimmage, and then it's just like he gave up. Like, Will Stein, like, do better. Like, trust that you're driving a Ferrari. Like, you're not at where was it, UTSA? You're not at UTSA anymore. You have Dante Moore, who has proven that he's not just a flashy true freshman wide receiver that can make explosive plays. He's willing to do the dirty work on run blocking and blocking downfield for his teammates. Like, you have amazing weapons that are willing to do the dirty work to make the whole team succeed and are also extremely explosive. Like, Wisconsin doesn't have a single guy that can cover Jeremiah McClellan. Wisconsin doesn't have a single guy that can cover Dante Moore. Like, abuse that. Use and abuse that. Okay, you guys know on this channel I don't like to be too negative, so here's a positive. Brock Thomas played extremely well. The last few weeks we've seen Brock Thomas come in at late in games to put games away. I'll talk more about the Dante Moore injury later on, but I want to talk about the positive of Brock Thomas. He's just a story everyone loves about college football, right? He's a walk-on. So really no expectations. He's from Eugene, so he's a hometown kid. His dad played on the Oregon football team. His grandpa played on the Oregon football team. It's just a really cool story, kind of an underdog story, and he looked really good. He finished 4 for 4 for 46 yards and a touchdown. He looks great throwing on the run. He has great arm strength, which is usually kind of the biggest difference with these walk-on slash, walk-ons. Started the season as the 4th or 5th string quarterback. So very impressive stuff from Brock Thomas. It just proves that I made a video in the offseason. It proves that Oregon does indeed have the deepest quarterback room in the country with Austin Novosad, who's amazing. Dante Moore, obviously, we all know how good he can be. Luke Moga has great potential and is freaky athletic. Brock Thomas, he's very similar to Dante Moore. I think Dante Moore has a little bit extra oomph. I'll call it. It's a very official term. A little bit extra oomph. And I think he kind of has that 5-star polish. But Brock Thomas is only a freshman, right? Is he a true freshman or a redshirt freshman? Or I'm sorry, he's a sophomore. So very impressive stuff from him. On the season, he's 55% completion percentage. Not awesome, but it's 5 for 9. Threw his first touchdown pass today, so that's awesome. It's hard to root against the kid, right? So very impressive stuff from Brock Thomas. I will very briefly get into the Dante Moore injury. I agree with the broadcasters. I think he most likely, just given the nosebleed, broken nose, whatever it was, I think Dante Moore is probably fine. But given the state of the game, Wisconsin wasn't lighting up the scoreboard. They weren't moving the game with the ball with ease. So I think it was more of a precaution that Dante Moore never came in. And Brock Thomas looked really good. And also the coaching staff knew that it's an ugly weather game. You're going to end up running the ball. It's not worth Dante Moore getting hurt. I guess there's the slight possibility that he has a concussion, but I don't know if he would have been on the sideline for the rest of the game. He certainly wouldn't have had his helmet if he had a concussion. So that to me says if he needs to go, he can go. That's kind of something, if you're watching a football game and a player gets hurt and they take his helmet from him, that means he's done for the game. Whether the broadcasters say it or not, that means he's done for the game. They don't want him running onto the field, so they take his helmet. He had his helmet. If he had a concussion, they would have taken his helmet. He wouldn't have been in a loud crowd, with a throbbing headache because of a concussion. So I really think Dante Moore's fine. It's obviously not a quarterback debate. Dante Moore, whenever he's on, he's one of, if not the best quarterbacks in college. It's just he has these games now with Indiana and Wisconsin where he just doesn't seem comfortable. He doesn't seem aggressive. And I don't know if it's maybe some ambiguity with Will Stein's play calling. I know I'm dogging on the dude, but Will Stein, just do better, man. It feels a little bit like Penn State they have all these weapons and you don't know how to use them. Will Stein is being way too conservative, and I would love to hear from you guys in the chat. What do you guys think? I thought the defense, especially in the first half, was a little too conservative as well. Oregon has beasts in the secondary, so why aren't you loading up the box to stop the run? Everyone knows Wisconsin's going to run the ball. They don't have a great offense, but Wisconsin loves to run the ball, and they're consistently running 2 tight end sets, and you don't even have 5 down linemen. You're going to have 3 down linemen against a 2 tight end set? I did not understand the game plan in the first half on either side of the ball. And then in the pouring rain, they're able to convert a deep corner route to Jeremiah McClellan on that. I think it was on the touchdown drive right before halftime. So it's it's pouring rain, but you can still pass the ball. So let's try that. Or Will Stein he's never embraced they can't stop inside zone. Let's just run that 3 times in a row until they stop it. It's basic football here. I don't understand what it is. And back to the point that I was making of establish something and then build off of that. There were multiple times tonight. So the Oregon Ducks offense is very much predicated on numbers. They run a lot of RPOs like a lot of college teams do. So the first read with that is how many guys are in the defensive box. So how many guys are close to the line of scrimmage, on the defensive line, or at the linebacker position. If you have 5 offensive linemen and 1 tight end, that means they have 6 guys in the box. Or you have, with a running back, you have 7 guys on your side. Well, if there's not at least 7 guys on the Wisconsin side at the linebacker or defensive line position, run the ball, right? Same thing on the outside. The Oregon Ducks run a lot of sets where they have 2 wide receivers stacked on top of each other or near each other, or 3 wide receivers next to each other in trips. So if you see 3 Wisconsin defenders on that side of the field, that's an advantage Oregon. Take advantage of that. There were multiple times tonight where clearly there were 2 Oregon Duck receivers out wide, and there were only 2 Wisconsin defenders out there. And they ended up running the ball, which is not typically the read, so I'm assuming that was a designed run. But that's to set up and keep the defense honest, so then it sets up later on throwing to a 2-on-2 opportunity, or having 2 defenders for 2 wide receivers. It just comes across as like he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a clear game plan. And with Dan Lanning as the coach, I'm not buying that. And don't get me wrong, the offensive line was executing horribly in the first half, and they came out in the second half playing extremely well. I want to give a lot of credit to the offensive line for turning it around. I want to give a lot of credit to the entire team. They were not playing well in the first half, and they really stepped up and played better in the second half. So I think that deserves some attention as well. And I guess that's a positive. That's, I think, the best turnaround at halftime that we've seen from the Oregon Ducks all season. But man, something's got to change on offense. It's a bye week this coming week, I believe. Oregon Ducks football schedule. Yep. So Saturday, or this coming week, there's no Oregon Ducks game. And then they play Saturday, November 8th at Iowa. Excuse me. So I hope in this bye week, I hope the Oregon Ducks really take a look in the mirror. I hope Will Stein takes a look in the mirror. Like, they play way more aggressively against better opponents. Like, I just don't get it. I wish the Ducks would play to win the game versus not lose the game on offense. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me? Am I crazy? I would love to hear from you guys. I'm looking up Iowa's schedule to see 41-3. So they played today. Okay, so Iowa also has a bye week. Will Stein, I'm just not impressed with his play calling the second half of the season. I don't get why he was so aggressive against Northwestern. He was so aggressive against, Montana State. He was so aggressive against Oklahoma State. And then it's like you get into Big Ten play and you're doing things completely different. Like, I don't, when you were doing really well, and don't get me wrong, the Oregon offense is still really good. Like, they're leading the nation in rushing offense. That may change after this game. Or I'm sorry, they lead the nation in yards per rush, and they're top 10 in yards per game. So they're a great running team. Obviously, we know Dante Moore, when he's on, he can be a dangerous weapon in the pass game. I'm pulling up the pass offense stats now. Oregon still is the 39th most passing, or has the most passing yards per 39th most passing yards per game at 263.3. So it's not like this offense is horrible, right? Like, I know I'm nitpicky here because that's what it takes to get to national championship level. Like, I think universally, Oregon fans are really tired of just being very good, right? Like, maybe that's not the case. That sounds a lot like Penn State, honestly. And I don't think Oregon Ducks fans are upset, but it's just, if you're going to win a national championship, you have to be aggressive on offense. You have to have the ability to kind of establish something and then build off of that. And Will Stein, I feel like, is almost regressing as a coach. I'm just extremely disappointed in Will Stein. I was reading the Reddit, the Oregon Ducks Reddit for the thread on this game, and everyone was saying the same thing. You know, the rain at the end of the first half made Will Stein kind of play or call good run plays, and they said it was an act of God. The rain was an act of God. So yeah, people in Reddit are saying struggled against Wisconsin 2 seasons in a row. Dub is a dub. Let's go Ducks. I agree. You know, Wisconsin's a well-coached football team. I know I said in my video earlier this week, I think this game may do Luke Fickell in. Since then, I've heard that that may not be the case, that Wisconsin may, instead of paying for the buyout, may just pay for better players, which I would agree with. I love Luke Fickell as a coach. I still wouldn't be surprised if he gets fired, just because it seems like it's just not a match. But the players continue to fight hard for him. I don't know if you guys watched the game, you guys saw that Wisconsin had a guy who broke his arm in their last game, and came back into the game in the second half. So clearly the players still fight for him. They still, you know, there wasn't a mutiny. No one's given up on the season, which would be really easy to do. So someone said Dante can have my nose, please get better. Yeah, I would donate my nose to Dante Moore as well. I think he'll be fine. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think it was just a precaution to not bring him into the game because they knew they'd be running the ball. Yep, you know, a win is a win, but we need to use this bye and seriously prepare for Iowa because that's going to be a tough game. I agree with that completely. Iowa's not an easy place to play, and if that offense isn't on point, it's going to be another game just like today. And Iowa's defense is even better. Kirk Ferentz is a phenomenal coach and is going to get that team ready. They're also coming off of a bye, which is extremely, you know, difficult. So they, over the next 2 weeks, Oregon's really going to need to lock in. And I hope to God they look better coming off in this bye than they did coming off the bye before the Indiana game. Let's just blame the weather and forget this game ever happened. LOL. I agree. That would be really easy to do. It was an ugly game that, you know, it was obviously never rains in Autzen Stadium, but there was a lot of water all over the place. That was a joke. So it is, but at the same time, if you look closely, there's still the drawback and the negatives that Will Stein doesn't seem to have a cohesive game plan, especially since we saw him do it earlier on in the year. And I feel like, so Dan Lanning said at the half at least that they wanted to start off fast, and that's why they did the onside kick. But then in the first half, they weren't bringing a lot of pressure on defense. They weren't, you know, attacking down the field on offense. So I'm not really buying that was the game plan. I would buy more, and obviously he can't say this, but I truly feel like Oregon was just playing not to lose today. And in the first half, they just weren't executing, and if you're going to play that, you have to execute well. So I think it was just a get through this week, get to the bye week, and then we'll reevaluate from there. Let's see. Win is a win. Not going to watch the highlights of it, but got the win. I agree. Prayers to Tim Brando. Nothing happened. He's just a bad broadcaster. Yeah, wasn't a fan. I feel like the announcers were a little bit more biased against the Ducks. And they just didn't make sense. Like there was I think it was in the second half, and it was 3rd and 17, and Brock Thomas completed a 1-yard, you know, crossing route, and the broadcaster was like, "Oh, great play call by Will Stein." Like, are you serious? Like it's a 1-yard gain on 3rd and 17. So the broadcasters were interesting tonight. This was supposed to be the easiest game left. That should be noted that nothing is guaranteed. Ugly, wet win, but it's a win. Get these guys healthy and ready for a brutal final month. I agree. Excuse me. I disagree. So this person's saying, yep, that's why I think people are insane when they say losing to Indiana was a good thing because we have an easier path to the playoffs. Did they forget we can easily drop another game and miss the playoffs altogether? I disagree with that. I think losing to Indiana was a good thing. I think that if the Ducks can recover, the Ducks can have a season like Ohio State had last year, where they get hot at the right time, and they can learn from their mistakes. However, tonight proves that they haven't learned from the mistakes of that Indiana loss. Again, the weather was horrible. I get it. But Dante Moore just did not look locked in. The team obviously wasn't locked in the first half, with just the way the offensive line was playing like crap. Like, they weren't firing off the ball. It took scoring points before anyone on the team started firing off the ball, which is extremely frustrating. So I agree the Ducks have a brutal final month. I think Minnesota, I think they're also, not a very tough game. But if the Ducks play like they did today, they run the risk of losing to anybody, especially in the first half, not executing. But Washington looks really good. USC is a really good football team. Iowa, very good football team, very tough place to play. So the Ducks do have a tough final month of the season, but if the Ducks would have beat Indiana, I would feel a lot more certain that they would lose a game. When I don't know if I'm going to predict that yet. As of this moment right now, I think the Ducks can pull through. They've shown that in big games they can in the Indiana game they didn't, but I think against Washington, I think they'll step up big. Thank goodness the USC game is at home. I think that's a big impact. So as long as the Ducks can stop the run against USC, I think we'll be fine. So what happened with Dante? Basically got punched in the nose. True, most likely a broken nose. Yeah, I again, like I said multiple times, I think the Dante Moore thing was just a precaution to pull him. As terrible as we play after bye weeks, I'm sure Iowa will be incredible. That's another thing I want to mention was the Oregon Ducks. What happened the last two home games? Like, they were on fire against Rutgers in New Jersey. They were on fire on the road at Penn State. I don't know what happened. What happened at home? The fans were great, especially given the weather. The fans were electric. So it's a little disappointing the last two home performances. So hopefully that can get straightened out before the final two home games of the season, with USC and Minnesota coming to town. Wisconsin is our new Stanford. I've been seeing that a lot. Just because they wear red uniforms doesn't mean they're Stanford. For those of you that may not know, Stanford has given Oregon trouble in the former Pac-12. Stanford used to give Oregon a lot of trouble, even in their down years. So people are saying that Wisconsin may be the new Stanford, given that we've struggled against them the last two seasons. Someone said, I'm fine with how the game ended up going. I agree with the second half. I'm a little concerned about Dante Moore, though. I'm not sure if he's regressing or what. I don't think he's regressing. I think he's just a little inconsistent, which is what he was at UCLA, and he's a lot better now. I've said from the start, Dante Moore's a lot better from his UCLA days, and I still agree with that. But it's like, if he's on, he's on. If he's off, he's off. And I guess the most concerning thing about that is that you would love to see it, like, if you can establish the run, your quarterback can turn it on if he's not that at the beginning of the game. He's not proving that so far. But, I really hope Dante comes back for another year. And it's not just a Duck fan saying that. Todd McShay, who is a, very popular, and I really respect his NFL draft analyst opinion. He said this past week that he hopes Dante Moore comes back for another season. So it's just an inconsistency. It's just an inconsistency thing. If Dante Moore consistently played like he did, even against Penn State, or, earlier on in the year, or how he looked at Rutgers last week, he would win the Heisman. He would be the number one overall pick. But he's just not doing that. And that's the biggest biggest difference between Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, is that Fernando Mendoza is doing it on a consistent basis. I think when Dante Moore's on, I think he's light years above Dante Moore, or above Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza is very good, plays with anticipation, but I think Dante just has the physical tools that are just a lot better than Fernando Mendoza. I think Dante Moore is a little bit better with his legs. I think Dante has a stronger arm. I think Dante does a better job of layering the ball in. Dante's been a little inconsistent against zone coverage the last few weeks. He really struggled against it at Indiana, but I think some of that was play calling as well. Tonight, struggled a little bit against zone as well, which that'll have to get cleaned up. But I also think Will Stein isn't calling appropriate plays against zone coverage, which is paramount. If your wide receivers aren't being put in position to win on routes against zone coverage, it makes it really hard to succeed against zone coverage, and then you have to, play out of structure, and it's just a whole thing. Would love to hear from you guys in the chat. What do you guys think about the game? I think if we're talking about helmet stickers, so performances of the game, I think Jordan Davison is obviously the most obvious answer. I think the punter, James Ferguson Reynolds, I think he played extremely well, and I'm really sad his touchdown got taken off the board because he has a great arm. Just add to my video that Oregon Ducks have the deepest quarterback room in the country. Add James Ferguson Reynolds as quarterback 6. Obviously that's a joke, but very impressed with the punter. He gets a helmet sticker. And let's see. Let's give out a third helmet sticker. Who do you guys think? Let's see. Pull up the box score just as a refresher. Let's see. Box score. Jordan Davison played extremely well. Kind of want to go Brock Thomas, but I also kind of want to go defensive. I'm going to go Naeem Offord. And that's probably going to be a hot take. But the reason why I want to give him a helmet sticker is he's really struggled at certain points in this season, and he's really done well in response to that. And for a young guy, that's extremely impressive. To have the mental resiliency to bounce back. You have a tough play and you can bounce back. He had some great pressures later on in the game. He had some great pass coverage later on in the game after that pass interference call. That was pretty pivotal. So I think he deserves the third helmet sticker of the game because of his mental resiliency. If he messes up, he's a goldfish, moves on to the next play. So, and from what I hear, the coaches see that, and that's why he's getting a lot of touches. Obviously, the Oregon Ducks, they're in a weird spot in the secondary because I think the secondary is very good, but also who's cornerback 2? Clearly, the coaches in practice, they love Theron Johnson Jr., or not Theron Johnson Jr., just Theron Johnson. And I think Theron Johnson's good, right? I think he has the highest floor, meaning like the worst he plays is probably a lot better than most of the other cornerback 2s. I think Naeem Offord is probably, I really like him and he deserves the helmet sticker, but he's just not there yet. I think he can, but he's not there yet. I don't know what happens with Ife Obadegwu. I think he's, in games at least, has probably played the best out of any of the cornerback 2s on the Ducks roster. And I'm talking about strictly like boundary corners. Obviously I'm not talking star, I'm not talking nickel, I'm not talking safety. I think Jaden Kennedy, is my favorite, nickel / star player. I don't think he's good in pass coverage, especially on the outside. I really don't want them to play him outside. But I think Aaron Flowers. Oh, I was really impressed with Aaron Flowers in pass coverage today. Typically, I think of him as a box safety, but he showed some great range ability and pass coverage. So huge shout out to Aaron Flowers as well. He played extremely well. Bryce Betcher played better in pass coverage than he usually does. So that was really impressive and good to see. I'm really impressed with the defensive tackles for Oregon. I think Amari Washington and Bear Alexander truly get better every week. And then obviously Tatum Tuioti, he doesn't get enough credit, and he just won't with Matayo Uiagalelei on the other side. You could certainly make the argument. I certainly would make the argument. I think Tatum Tuiyoti's had a better season than Matayo Uiagalelei. I know probably as translating to the NFL, Matayo probably translates just a little bit better. Tatum's most likely going to be more of a or Joey Bosa versus a Nick Bosa, and that I think that's more Matayo Uiagalelei. But Tatum Tuioti has made himself a lot of money this season, and you just love to see him play because he's always giving maximum effort, and he's also a freak athlete. Definitely an underrated athlete. There's a lot of times he's coming off that edge and he is reading a read option, and he's somehow able to surf and play both. Whenever you see a defensive end playing read options and they put their arms out like that, they call that surfing, which is how to play that from the defensive end position. So final answer, my 3 helmet stickers for the game. I'm going to go Jordan Davison. Huge game, 2 touchdowns, 16 carries, 102 yards, averages 6.4, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 20. I don't know if his stats will populate. Splits are updated nightly. 102, 202. Yes, I don't think so. I think he's now over 300 yards for the season, and he has what? 8 touchdowns? Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so he's now up to 10 rushing touchdowns on the year. Very impressive freshman season from him. I think De'Aaron Hill is also really good. Obviously, the future of the Oregon Ducks running back room they're in great hands with Jordan Davison, De'Aaron Hill, Dwan Riggs is a younger guy. Freshman. So great at the running back position, great at the quarterback position. So now I want to talk about the college football playoff race and that moving forward, and I will change my title. Let's see. So So in this discussion, we'll be speaking more broadly about what happened kind of across the country today. There weren't a ton of crazy upsets. Texas A&M continues to look good. Come on, give me a college football scoreboard, please. Complete scoreboard. Okay. So Miami at 9, they're not going to jump Oregon. Vanderbilt, they're really the only one that may jump Oregon. Other than that, I think Oregon will hold. At number 6, Alabama, they struggled a little bit, but they've had 3 or 4 consecutive ranked wins. So I don't think the committee will drop them too low. I think Oregon, as of right now, is still very securely in a playoff position. I don't think there's really much of an argument against that. A lot of people say that if Oregon loses another game, that they don't think they have the resume to get in. I'm going to disagree with that because Indiana got in last season. So I think even still, if Oregon loses another game to either USC or Washington, I think they're most likely still in. A 10-2 Big Ten team, I think the committee would have a really hard time not putting them in, especially since the Big Ten deserves 3 teams. And very clearly, the best 3 teams in the Big Ten this season have been Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. I think it's going to be tough for the Big Ten to get a 4th team in, but I'm not ruling against it, especially since I think the Big 12 is in a really bad spot. Texas Tech, they've been squeaking by the last couple of weeks, they lost Arizona State. BYU is very clearly the best team in the Big 12 right now, but I think they're certainly beatable. I think the Big 12 fans should really hope that BYU wins out, because I think that's really the best That's the only way the Big 12 gets multiple teams in, or even more than 2 teams in. But I think right now the Big 12's in a tough spot to even get 2 teams into the college football playoff. Obviously, the committee loves the SEC, so I see. I mean, Alabama will get in. Georgia will most likely get in. Texas A&M will be in. Ole Miss would be in right now. So that's at least 4 teams. I think right now, if the playoffs started today, I think Vanderbilt's in. So that's 5 SEC teams. The group of 5 race kind of blew up today with USF, who was the very clear favorite in the Power 5. They lost to Memphis at home. So pulling up the AP poll, who's the next highest ranked group of 5? So USF was the only ranked, and it would go to Tulane, has the most votes to be in the top 25, but they have a couple of losses, right? Which, granted, one of those losses was to Ole Miss. Tulane lost to Ole Miss. That's really their only loss, and they're not in the top 25. They beat Duke. They beat Northwestern. They beat Eastern. Okay, so they don't have an awesome resume, but if they win out, that would include a win over Memphis. That would include a win over Temple. So Tulane, I think right now is probably then in the driver's seat to be the group of 5 representative. But going off the AP top 12, BYU would be in, Vanderbilt, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Indiana, Ohio State. So that puts us at what? 3 Big Ten teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 SEC teams. I hope Notre Dame doesn't get in. They don't deserve to be in. I think they're a great offense, but defensively they're a mess. So I really hope there's not Notre Dame bias this year. I really hope Notre Dame drops another game just to completely rule out the fact that they get in. What is their schedule? Their remaining games are Boston College, at Navy, Pitt, at Syracuse, and Stanford. So if they drop any one of those games, they don't have the resume to get in. So I really hope that Notre Dame drops another game. I'd be happy with the playoff field of this top 12. I think very clearly they're the top 12 teams in the country. Maybe Texas Tech, when healthy, is a better team than Vanderbilt. I think Oklahoma has a lot of problems. I think Missouri, especially since Bo Pribula's out, I think they have a lot of problems. Tennessee, they're really inconsistent, and they have a gunslinger quarterback. So I feel pretty confident that this past week's AP poll, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Miami, Vanderbilt, BYU, and Tulane as the group of 5 representative. I think those do deserve to be the college football playoff field. Let me know what you guys think in the chat and comments. And then let's look at Heisman odds. I bet Dante he was already way out of it. But let's see the Heisman odds. Is there anything you guys thought of? What did you guys think about the game? What were you most impressed with? What were you disappointed in? I said my helmet stickers for the game go to Jordan Davison, James Ferguson Reynolds, the punter, and Naeem Offord because of his mental resilience. He had a bad DPI, defensive pass interference, and then later on in the game was applying some great pressure off the edge and some great hustle, and didn't let one play kind of screw up a bunch of plays for him. Heisman odds: Fernando Mendoza is at plus 300, Ty Simpson plus 340, Julian Sayin plus 380. So those guys are really close. I think Fernando Mendoza very clearly deserves the Heisman at this point. As much as it hurts to say that as an Oregon Ducks fan. He's playing extremely well. He's extremely smart. He has good physical tools. I think Dante has better physical tools, but Fernando's doing it a lot more consistently. I think I'm not as high on Ty Simpson as a lot of people are. I think he's getting propped up a little bit by system. He makes some great throws, and I'm not calling him a system quarterback at all. That's Garrett Nussmeier. But I think Ty Simpson's getting propped up a little bit by Kalen DeBoer's system. There's a lot of throws behind the line of scrimmage, and I just, whenever I watch him, I'm not too wowed by him. Wouldn't it be crazy if Vanderbilt made the playoff? Like, I think that'd be really fun. I don't know if they'll do it. They have a really tough schedule ahead of them. Vanderbilt. So they have a bye week. Or no, I'm sorry, they play next Saturday. Wait, did I screw that up? Is Iowa actually next week? No. So Oregon is on a bye. Vanderbilt has at Texas, which that'll be an interesting game. I wonder if the fans, if they're going to show up for that one at Texas. I assume they are because they love football in Texas. But man, like, barely hung on to beat Mississippi State. It's going to be an interesting one. Then they have Auburn coming to town. They have Kentucky coming to town, and then they go on the road to Tennessee. If Vandy wins out, I think they're obviously in the playoff. Even if they don't, if they drop one of these, I think Vanderbilt could still be in the playoff. Where's the SEC at right now in standings? Man, the SEC is still wide open. Like, so the SEC has 2 undefeated teams. They have 4 teams with 1 loss. Man, this SEC race is about to get intense the last 4 weeks of the season. If I had to put money on it, I think Texas A&M makes it. Especially, they've got to be running out of tough games, right? Texas A&M right now, they still have, at Missouri in a couple of weeks. They have South Carolina coming to town, and then they have Texas the last game of the year. So Texas A&M doesn't have a cakewalk. I think Texas A&M ultimately makes the SEC championship. Man, but that second team in the SEC championship, it's a toss-up. Somehow Texas only has 1 loss in conference right now. That doesn't feel right, but it is. It's a toss-up. Literally between Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. Pick a name out of a hat with that one. Who do you guys think ends up making the Big Ten championship? Right now, it's really hard for me to bet against Indiana and Ohio State. Especially, they've just been playing way more consistently than Oregon has, and I think those 3 teams are just in a different tier, talent-wise, than the rest of the conference. I think the Big Ten this year does have more teams in that second tier, and that's kind of making the Big Ten catch up to the SEC. It's a bigger second tier. Like, there's USC, there's Michigan very clearly. Illinois, I think, is in that second tier. Depending on the day, Michigan, Nebraska, I think. Washington, most certainly in that second tier. And then I think the worst team in the Big Ten, so right now that's Wisconsin. I think they could easily beat the worst team in the SEC. The discrepancy between the SEC and the Big Ten isn't as big as it's been, or isn't as big as it's been in years past. The Big Ten has a really impressive second tier this year. It's just going to be, can they get more teams into that top tier? Which I think they can. USC has a great recruiting class coming in, so I think in a couple of years they can be there. Michigan has retooled great. They have a lot of great young talent, so they can definitely be in that elite tier. I don't see, obviously, Ohio State going anywhere, especially with Kurt Signetti. I don't see Indiana going anywhere, and obviously I don't see Oregon going anywhere with the way Dan Lanning recruits high school and the portal. So I think the SE or the Big Ten is in good hands. I think they're a great conference, especially with the depth of that second tier. It's really just getting more teams into that elite tier for Big Ten teams, which USC can be, Michigan can be. So, anything else you guys want to talk about? There's no Oregon game next week, so I'll most likely still be doing a live stream, just recapping the day's games, kind of probably around this time, 8 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, Oregon goes on the road in a couple of weeks to Iowa, so be on the lookout for my preview video for that game. Yeah. Other than that, my name is Zach. This has been the Sports Corner at Choose Adventure Media. As always, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you don't miss when I go live. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.